G'day everyone, welcome to the Post-Roe Show. I'm Nicholas Check.
I'm Becca Compton.
And this is our first episode, and we're asking the question, are pro-choice people open-minded?
Okay, so our first kind of question here is, are posters being taken down? So our posters have kind of been taken down kind of violently in our school. I've seen a few just being ripped down, and it's kind of difficult there. And then I also, for our Q&A, as people know in the school, I had printed 12 to 15 posters, and they were all taken down in the span of 2 days. Now, I don't know if it was students or staff, so that can make a difference, but that is also a reason why we chose this topic.
In addition to that, we sent out a link in the advertising to submit questions into the Post-Roe Show to ask questions, about the pro-life movement. The only issue was we received probably 3 or 4, I think about 3, but which we'll address at the end of the video. But like I said, that could probably stand for either 2 different points. Either there's a small number of pro-choice people, or they're just not willing to make a point, and ask your question. If you have a question that you're firm enough, a point that you're firm enough to stand up for the pro-choice side, you should be willing to make a point, ask the question, and we can address it. And if we can't address it, well, then you kind of know why you're standing on that side. But like I said, we only received about 3.
Okay, and our second point is nobody dialogues. Our first reason can kind of be people are kind of too shy to talk. They're scared to have their opinions kind of pushed on them, or too scared to just have a conversation about political means. And then there's people who are honestly not willing to talk at all. They don't want their opinions challenged, they're very closed-minded, and that can go for honestly both sides of the conversations. Okay, our next one is our experiences with pro-choice people and dialogue. So I'm going to go first, and it's negative conversations. So there is positives and negatives to both sides. So I've had negative conversations with a pro-choice person, and both of us didn't have good standpoints. So basically, on my side, the pro-life side, I had the firm standpoint that abortion is murder and just that. I didn't have any educational standpoints. It was just flat out, it was murder. And for the pro-choice side, it was my body, my choice. That's the only reason. We basically had a no, I'm right conversation back and forth. It wasn't a very educated, so it's very good if you have some education so you have smooth dialogue going back and forth.
Yeah, like Becca's saying, we both have had interactions with the pro-choice people, but mine, I've had like she said, varying good and bad conversations, but I've had a few good ones where we're both able to make civil debate and discuss the conversation while both making good points, and then when someone else would make, that's actually a fair point, and then you make your rebuttal. But often they can just be situations where neither of the people are well educated enough, and like Becca said, it becomes a no, I'm right conversation, and then they kind of look at you and like, no, it's my right. You're like, no, it's not. It's just murder. And it's like, that's not, yelling at each other does not convince one another. All it does is more or less shut the other person out and kind of make you, very distasteful, and they don't really want to listen to you whatsoever. I don't like to be yelled at. Do you like to be yelled at? And Becca, do you? I mean,
I don't like to be yelled at.
It's not ideal. No one likes to be yelled at. You don't want to listen to anyone who's yelling at you, no matter how good the point is. I could hear the best talk in the world about why, literally insert any topic, and if they're just yelling at me and saying, well, you're being stupid and this and this and this and this, you're being a horrible person, I'd go, I don't care. I don't. I typically have been a big fan of the social media. That's where I go out to find people to have conversations with, because at least around this area, people aren't typically very open-minded to talking about it, and unless they're on social media, which provides some form of wall, which it's kind of nice in a sense. It allows you to have a conversation with somebody without having to reveal whom you are. But I personally I find it's a really good way to reach people, and I've had a lot of fun conversations. I've heard like sometimes their points are utterly ridiculous. Sometimes they're really good. But I've been told things such as like, I don't know, I hate women. I can't talk about this because I'm a man. I'm only pro-life to impress some pro-life girl. That's my favorite. Uh, which, I mean, I don't know about you.
You
but
do
I
you.
don't. Yeah, okay, sure. That was a fun one. Or one was literally like she messaged me back, and she didn't have to message me back. She chose to, and she goes, "Stop messaging me. You're ruining my buzz." I was like, okay. You have a great day. So it's very bizarre, and there's way more civil ways to discuss this topic because yes, it's a hot button topic, but it should be able to be discussed civilly.
Yeah. Our next topic is, are pro-lifers proudly close-minded? I'm going to give you the definition of close-minded. So from Google, close-minded is a narrow outlook, and they don't want their opinions challenged. So as you can see, this can kind of go from both ways. Having an open mind is important, but listening and understanding is kind of a little more important. But truth is the most deepest important one. We have to have an only truth that brings us to common ground, and pro-lifers in the movement have science and facts based on our truths, so it doesn't change based on our opinions.
Like what you're saying, like truth is there's truth, like it is objective. Like realistically, there is real truth, and once you find, like Becca was saying, once you find it, you hold tight to it. In a way, you're close-minded about it. Well, both, like she said, both sides are close-minded in a way. A lot of pro-choice people don't want to admit that abortion is wrong, which, okay, but they should at least be open to talking about it. I'm open to talking about it. Shoot me some Q&A questions. Comment below. But realistically, like, we all know, like, slavery is bad. We would all agree on that. It's a fact. It's true. Or other things we know child neglect is wrong. Realistically, the truth of it is this. We know the fact, like, biology says that the conceived, like, the unborn, it is a fact. They are living. 96% of biologists all agree on it, actually. It's really interesting. Look it up.
Yeah.
But, so once you've at least known that, and the science backs the fact that it's an unborn human, it begins to become more so clear as to why you would have to fight against abortion.
And like Nick said, with science and truth, I know it is proven that a baby's heartbeat starts beating at 8 weeks. And I know there's been some debates online about whether or not that heartbeat is
actually
a heartbeat. But it is. It's a heartbeat. Like, how can you mistake a heartbeat for? Yeah.
Even let's say for one reason or the other, or I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I'll admit I don't know the full backing behind the science of whether or not it's a heartbeat. But nonetheless, it's proof of its living. What does it matter specifically if it's a heart or if it's just vital signs? Okay, vital signs means it's living. So what is a heart doesn't make you human. The fact, it's the DNA and the fact that you're living.
And it's also a fact of 2 humans make a human. So how can it not be human?
Quick math.
2 plus 2 equals 4.
Human plus human equals,
Human.
guess what? Another human.
Our next part is our Q&A. I know. Okay, Nick,
All right,
your first question.
I'll go first. All right, one of the questions we got was, why do men care about abortion if it doesn't affect their body? Okay, so when you ask why are men against abortion, you need to view it from a broader view. Why is anyone against abortion? The answer is the pro-life community as a people are obligated to defend the basic human rights of life. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. It doesn't. So while men and women are both obligated to protect a human's right to life, well, no, I'm a man, thus I can't conceive. But this does not change the fact that I think every human, no matter how old or where they're currently at or their stage of development, I know they're all human and all deserve to be protected, just as I would want to be protected if I were in the womb, and I would assume you would want to be protected. I mean, I think it's a pretty safe bet. And how, they're the weakest form. It is also a man's job as the man of the house to be a defender And what is more defenseless than the weak unborn human who cannot defend itself?
Okay. Our next question is, what was the Roe versus Wade court case? What is its ruling, and why does it matter that it was overturned? I'm going to kind of read off of what I have already written because that's kind of better than how I would answer it without looking at it. So, it was a case between Roe versus Wade that argued whether a woman has a right to choose. Let me explain a little background on both sides of the case. So, I'll start with the defendant, who was Roe. Roe was in her third pregnancy, living in Texas. Abortion wasn't legal unless the mother's life was at risk. Roe, which was not her real name, struggled with drugs and alcohol and already had 2 kids and didn't want the third. Her case was that a woman has the right to choose underneath the 14th Amendment, which says you have the right to privacy. Wade was a pro-life male. He was not very nice and tended to be sexist. He wasn't really the right person for the job, and he was arguing the opposite. This ruling was that a woman should get the right to choose under the 14th Amendment, the right to privacy, that executed underneath the Supreme Court gave all women in the country the right to abortion. This right has been previously decided by the individual states and their elected officials. Every state had to now recognize a woman's right to abortion. It's no longer up to the people in the states to decide. Once abortion was legal, it was taken at the federal level and not the state level. The fact that Roe was overturned is that the individual states now have the right to dictate whether or not abortion is legal in the states or not and what restrictions they wanted. I'm going to tell you the abortion-free states right now. It's Alabama, Arkansas, Idaho, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, and Texas. And
don't you love Texas?
Go Texas! And all of the information that I had are backed up by websites. So those will be in the link in the description.
Cool beans.
Move on to our next question.
All right. Next one is, why exactly are Christians against abortion? All right. Christians, for starters, we all know, well, I shouldn't say we all know. I assume we all know what the 10 Commandments are. One of the most commonly known ones is, thou shalt not kill. We're all to abide by the 10 Commandments, especially as Christians, which we're specifically told in the 10, like, it's unacceptable to take the life of any human. Well, that doesn't specifically, but it says kill, which we get what that means. All right, once this is established, we look to the scripture and through science to figure out what specifically, like how that affects abortion then. So when you go to, if you look in Jeremiah 1, verse 5, it reads, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I mean, I don't know how more specific you really can get. God clearly stated that he had set us apart even before we were born. In addition, science has shown, like I said earlier, 96% of biologists, whether they're atheists or even pro-choice, they believe that life it begins at conception. Like it's not when the heartbeat starts. They are alive from the moment of conception. So when you take into the fact that it's living and human, which, like we said, back at quick maths.
Quick math.
Human plus human equals smaller human.
Smaller human.
What you're saying is, so when you know it's an unborn living human, and the fact that God has already set it apart, even before it was born, we know that the 10th commandment, one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not kill, would then also apply to you cannot kill the unborn.
Mm-hmm. Okay, our next question is a little bit of a deeper question, so I do warn that I am going to talk about rape. Okay, so the next question is, how does abortion affect rape trauma? And I'm going to kind of read off of it because, again, it's a better answer than me just kind of speaking from my brain. So it is a little bit harder topic. Rape is a very, very difficult thing that can happen to a young girl or woman. Us as pro-lifers have to have so much empathy for these girls. But that empathy does not mean abortion. Abortion is a violent thing to begin with, so having a girl who just experienced a very extreme trauma can go to another place and have a very traumatic, violent thing happen to her as well. So what we need to give her is love, compassion, and helpfulness. Pregnancy centers are a huge part that places that give tremendous help. please, I consider you, if you haven't heard of pregnancy centers, please go look them up, do some research, find one in your area, call them, do your little digging, and please just, pregnancy centers are a huge help to everything. So I encourage you guys.
Yeah, especially Heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've done a lot of work with Heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
They're really great there. I'd recommend.
Yeah, I heard there's also a place up in Findlay, so I heard
Mm-hmm.
their help as well. And then for the second part of the question, it's, if kids can't adopt kids, then why would you force a kid to have a kid? This is also a very hard question, and there's actually not a lot of research out there about it, because I did look it up to try to find a sound answer, and there wasn't really a sound answer out there, so it tells me that it's a newer type of question.
Yeah, but whoever came up with it, also prompts for you, because it's a really good question.
It's a really good question. Okay, so first of all, when it comes to teenagers, they choose to do so many things that are illegal, like drinking, for example. We never want the law to deny teens the chance to raise their child. So even if they can't adopt, they can raise their child that they choose to create. No one is forcing a kid to have a kid. They can choose to put their kid up for adoption, and the pro-life movement would never want teens to be forced to raise their children, and wouldn't want them to be forced to give up their children as well. We just don't want the unborn children to pay the price for their parents' mistakes.
Cool. And again, if any of you have questions, even if you're pro-life and you're like, oh, this is a really good question I've heard from somebody else, comment below. We'll address it in future videos.
Yep, and I encourage any of you pro-choicers or even pro-lifers who don't know much about like the pro-life movement to come to our meetings and ask to talk to any one of us, whether it's Nick, me, one of our advisors, or honestly any of the members. Just come in and ask, hey, can I talk to you one-on-one? And we'll be obviously willing to come and have a conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm down to talk. All right. Most importantly, like and subscribe. If you agree with what we're saying, and honestly, you should give us a like. But if you absolutely hate my guts for one reason or the other, and you really don't like what I'm saying, please let me know by subscribing and giving me a like.
Okay.
Also, I want to give a special thank you to Holy Family Radio for allowing us to use this awesome studio.
So great.
This place is great. Yes.
Give them applause.
Yes, thank you guys so much. God bless.